I am also doing well. And
And apparently we have a guest slash new AI co-host.
apparently we do. I guess I'm springing it on you.
I feel sprung.
So today we have joining us is read.ai meeting notes. And this is an app that hops into your Zoom meeting that will transcript your meeting.
Okay. Well,
So
there you go.
I don't know if it'll be any good or not, but hey, we'll see.
Well, I guess I mean we're jumping right into the main topic here then, aren't we? Which was centered around AI and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, well, yeah, okay, great.
Well,
Well, tell me
well,
about this read.ai meeting notes. What is this? Is this
uh,
a part of Zoom or is this an add-on third party thing or what?
it's actually an app of Zoom. So on the right hand side, there's different
Mhm.
apps that you could add,
There
and
it is. Meeting tools and metrics by Reed.
yeah, yeah. And so
Okay.
I saw it over there, and what caught my eye was AI, since we've been
Oh,
very
of course.
interested in AI lately. There's
Hmm.
actually some other apps in there that do a similar thing. But then, friend of the show, Scott Wilsey, has been working with transcripts on the
Mac Whisper.
Mac Whisper
Yep.
for the other podcast, the Friends with Brews podcast, and
Podcast.
pod great.
Podcast sounds like something your proctologist would do.
So I was, I'm always interested in, we do our notes, and I think they could be better if I wanted to take the time to make them be better. I really don't want to take the time, so AI is for the lazy man, right?
Uh, yes,
Yes.
absolutely. And if any of you, dear listener, are Perl programmers and you
Hmm.
have read Programming Perl by Larry Wall, which was like, the definitive, not Perl, the definitive guide, that'd be a different book, but Programming Perl by Larry Wall from the 90s, um, you would know that laziness is a virtue. Not like laziness, sloth, etc., but laziness as in not wanting to do extra work for work's sake.
Yeah.
So yeah, anything that AI can do better than I can, sure, let's,
Sure.
yeah, why not
Let's make it happen.
make it happen.
Make it happen. So, like I said, I'm giving this a try. It was slightly intrusive. Um, as far as the install goes. The install goes, it taps into you can tie it into your Office, your Microsoft account or your Google account, and
Hmm.
it gives itself permissions. And then when I started this meeting, I kicked it out because I didn't want it recording. I didn't want a bunch of dead air before you and I got to talking. So
Got it.
I kicked it out. As soon as you joined, it joined itself back in. So I'm like, okay. But I've had this app, as long as we've been podcasting today.
Okay. All right. Well, as long as we're not, that's great. Well, in solidarity, I'll give it a shot with you too. We'll see what happens in the next Zoom that I have. I'll get my meeting notes as well. Because I have noticed that like for some time now, WebEx meetings has transcriptions built in.
Mm-hmm.
And it was funny at the hospital for, which I managed security operations recently, they got a report, a spam report not a spam report, but a report of suspected hacking because they saw chat going on and they're like, I didn't type these things. But what it was poor dictation recognition,
Mm-hmm.
so it was like different words like Starbucks, this, that, blah, blah, blah. And, that wasn't what it was saying. And the person didn't realize what was going on. So they thought that someone had compromised their account and then was typing things on their WebEx account, which was kind of humorous.
Nice. Yeah. I always like attacks that are fake. I mean, they're not real, but they're interesting.
Yeah, I prefer to have false alarms and fake than real attacks because I've been
Yeah.
dealing with this week too.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh,
So Scott may not want to listen to us today because he kind of hates Chat GPT. And
I've been going out of my, although I did actually use the C word on the latest Friends with Brews podcast. I've been going out of my way not to, show it to him, but he's been coming back to me, showing me, different things from the Mac GPT app that he's been using. So he's still using it, but I think he's just using it to make fun of it.
yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
I do. Well, so I'm reading a book right now. Shoot, I forget it's like Castle by the Sea or Sea Castle by Andrew Main, and it's brand new. And one of the things that he is talking about in AI, he's talking about an underwater the underwater UVAs, the underwater vehicles for shipwrecks and what have you. So you're talking about this unmanned device that being able to send into the water, it's programmed with AI. And he's talking about, having the user say, well, go find a gun. This is what you tell the robot, go find a gun, not go to this depth, go, because it has programmed in what a gun would be made of, what a gun shape would look like, how it would go. So then it's also equipped with radar and lidar and different spectrums, so it could use all of these tools that it already knows. And instead of telling it where to go left, go right, go down, go move your whatever, you tell it go find a gun, and it knows what a gun is, and it knows the methods that it could possibly find it. I mean, that's a brilliant use of AI.
yeah, and here's where we're going. We are going to see the consequences. Go kill bad guys.
Yeah. Who are the
What
bad
could
guys?
possibly go wrong? You know,
You got the wrong Greek.
it's I guarantee that's going to come up, right? It's going to happen at some point. Someone's going to trust that. Oh yeah, this is fine. We trust the machine. Oops, we just killed innocent civilians. Now, that said, humans make mistakes too,
Yes.
right? But I have a feeling it's going to be received a little differently when it's a computer killing people, making the decisions to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Um, see
oh,
also RoboCop.
yeah. Yeah. So hopefully we won't make machines doing things that even have the option of doing that, like driving
Uh,
cars, things like that.
oh, they're making I assure you, they are being made right now. Yeah. No, that's no joke. That's happening. So
Mhm.
yeah. Anyway.
Well, then even things like, so a friend of mine recently had heart valve replacement, and they have a pacemaker in place. So
Yeah.
you could have a machine in there that has variables, not just keep tick on and off. All you do is like a blinker. You keep it at this pace all the time. That thing
Mm-hmm.
will start looking at, well, if there's variables, then I need to do this. If this happens, I need to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it could accidentally kill somebody just by
Yep.
reading the situation wrong.
Yep. Read the room. Oh, you read that room wrong.
The computer made a mistake.
Yeah, but there you go. Why? Because we programmed it to be human. Oh. So, what else is going on? So, so we got our new Zoom app.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking a little bit about GPT and stuff like that. So,
Mm-hmm.
I don't even remember now. It's been a couple weeks, right? We were off last week.
We were off
Uh,
last week, but we're only 2 weeks out, so
okay.
not a
So,
bad one.
so GPT update. I have been using ChatGPT for work
Mm-hmm.
purposes. I've been using it to help me craft certain programming scripts and SQL and queries, etc. I've been using it to draft memos and security awareness articles.
Mm-hmm.
I've even used it for not necessarily to write, but to get clarification on what certain terminology meant on things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm essentially using it as an alternative to search engines.
Mm-hmm.
To that end, I'm also using the new Bing bot, the new chat mode for Bing search
Bing
engine.
bot. Okay. I
Yes,
haven't heard of
and
that.
I'm getting very similar results there. I am not yet signed up for Google Bard, but I did ask to be. So I'm on the wait list for Google Bard. That reminds me, I should try to get in with some of my other Google accounts to see if they get
Sure.
in faster.
Yeah, I bet my corporate account might get in.
Yeah. I tried signing in. Try signing in. If you're with a Google Workspace account, sign out and then sign in with your personal account. So I guess that's not going to work. Never mind. Because all my other Google accounts are corporate accounts, so that's not gonna work. So I'm on the wait list for Google's Bard. I did read an article in Wired about how it's different, and some of the controls that they're putting onto it to try to, put up some guardrails around it.
Mm-hmm.
So as opposed to Chat GPT, which is like, hey, look, this is cool, new bling, have fun.
Mm-hmm.
Google is like, hey, we do kind of have a reputation that we want to consider before we just turn it loose on, the world. So,
Mm-hmm.
so it's interesting. And I've played very little with Bing, but one of the things when you give it something, it comes back with um like questions or responses in the forms of a search that you might
Mm-hmm.
use. So it's very search centric.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, yeah, I'm curious. Like I'm still finding a lot of value out of these things when it comes to I'm using it. Oh, so I used to be a big user of hemingwayapp.com, which is the
Mm-hmm.
Hemingway editor.
Okay.
It's a paid app or a free website that you can use, web service. And it will basically rewrite or critique. It won't rewrite, but it'll critique your writing
Ah,
and help you be more terse and concise.
okay.
So, if you are the sort of person who succumbs to the propensity of overutilizing flowery and convoluted language,
Mm-hmm.
it will help you be more concise.
Okay.
If you are the type of person who has a tendency to construct run-on sentences spliced with numerous commas which go on and then you want to continue and then after that you add on to it again and then you would add more to your sentences, it will tell you this sentence is long,
Mm-hmm.
period. Consider stopping at this phrase, period. Add another period here, right? So things like that. um
I need to
but
look at that.
instead for ChatGPT, I'll say something like, please rewrite this to be more concise.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to joking, the joke of this, and I promise it will not go on as long as my Deadlands preacher story went. I was joking. My girlfriend wanted to see Creed 3
Uh-huh.
last week, right before it closes. And I was like, yeah, I'll see that. I said, but I haven't seen Creed 2 yet. And she said, I don't think it really matters that much. As a, like she said, I think the movies are pretty much the same. And I was like, guys train, comma, guys fight, question mark.
Yeah.
And then I jokingly said, hey, ChatGPT, summarize the Rocky and Creed movies for me. It's like, sure, I can do this. Rocky 1, underdog Rocky Balboa gets a shot at the championship, blah, 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 fights Apollo Creed, blah, 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 blah. Rocky 2, rematch with Apollo Creed, blah, 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 blah. Rocky 3, yeah, it goes on. Creed 1, Apollo's son fights, blah, 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 Creed 2. And it only goes up to Creed 2 because, ChatGPT's knowledge cuts off at 2021.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, that's pretty good. Can you be more concise? It's like, sure, and it goes down from like a paragraph for each movie to a sentence for each movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I just said, please be more concise. And it gets a little shorter. And it goes from things like underdog gets a shot at the championship for the first movie
Uh-huh.
to underdog wins championship. Right. And then finally I asked it, and got down and it's like, here's the most concise possible abbreviation, and it's like Rocky and Apollo Creed's son, blah 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 blah. And it was like, oh, that's the most concise. I was like, please be more concise. And it does. The final thing that came out was Rocky and Apollo's son fight.
There you go.
And I did give it a little bit of feedback though. I was like, I thought you told me that previous version was the most concise. Oh, I apologize. You're right. I did say that, but apparently I could do better. Which I'm finding is pretty consistent, right? I think it's kind of funny though, because talking with it, like we're comparing it to managing mediocre employees who want to please and want to do a good job,
Mm-hmm.
but they still need some nudging.
Yeah.
And I mentioned this on, I think, Friends with Brews, that there are now jobs, and I found one at I think it's Beth Israel Hospital. There's a hospital here in Burlington, in Boston, is hiring AI prompt engineers.
Mm-hmm.
So those jobs exist now, like someone whose job is to craft prompts for AIs to get work done.
Yeah.
That could be fun. So I
Yeah.
would, of course, I wouldn't want to be a prompt engineer. I'd rather be a prompt manager myself. So
Yeah. There you go. On time. Well, so one of the things I had a question for you about. So if let's say I wanted to make a SQL query. If I wanted to, I'm just going to use Office 365 or Exchange as an example, just because that's the easiest query I can think of right now. But if I had a SQL database and I
yep.
wanted to get all of the licenses associated with all active users, how would I request that SQL query? And I
Okay.
want to export it to a CSV.
Okay. So what version of SQL are we talking about here? Microsoft SQL Server?
Microsoft SQL Server. Or
Okay.
yeah.
So, well, let me sign into, well, I've got, actually, I have the handy little chat thing. Let's find out. Let's log in. Let's do this for real. Let's see how it would do it. Okay, I have logged into ChatGPT. I can now try GPT-4, which is the latest version.
Yeah.
I have an MS SQL Server. What version?
But I don't care.
Okay, well, I won't
Yeah.
even specify. I have an MS SQL Server. What are we trying to find? I'd like to know how many licenses are in you. What was it?
Yeah. All of the users that have licenses, Office licenses,
Wait, Office license or SQL Server licenses? Which are we talking about?
Office license. So if I were gonna, I was just talking about a generic database with information in it. So you can really,
Oh, okay. So if
I've got a
you have a SQL
database.
database, I thought you were trying to get licensing for the server itself.
No, no, no. So I've
Oh,
got,
okay. So you have a SQL database.
yeah. So how do I write the query to get the information out of the database that I want?
Okay. So all right. So
It can be anything, your choice,
this is
dealer's
me
choice.
doing the right. So this is me acting as a prompt engineer, right? I
Mm-hmm.
am here working the prompt. So I have a SQL database containing license data.
Sure.
Okay.
Anything.
I'd like to know all of the users who are licensed for MS Office. Can you describe how the data is structured, or do you know?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I mean,
I do not know how the data is structured. Okay.
it's
So,
oh,
and I use manners
mm-hmm,
because you've watched the Orville, right?
mm-hmm,
And you know what happens when AIs become sentient and is treated badly, right? So I use manners. I use please and thank you when I'm
mm-hmm.
at. Please speculate on the table structure. And I'm being a little verbose. I wouldn't have to be this deep,
Mm-hmm.
right? Please speculate on the table structure and give me a SQL query to display this information.
Okay.
All right. Okay. GPT-4 is a little slower. They're throttling it. So since I don't know the exact structure of your database, I'll provide a few scenarios with different table structures and corresponding SQL queries.
Mm-hmm.
You can then adapt the appropriate query based on your actual database schema. Scenario 1, single table containing all license data. Table licenses, ID integer, username, varchar, software name, varchar, license key, varchar, expiration date, date, SQL query. Select username from licenses where software name equals MS Office.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Scenario 2, separate tables for users, software, and licenses. So it defines a users table, which
Uh-huh.
has an ID and a username, a
Mm-hmm.
software table, which has an ID, software name,
Mm-hmm.
and a licenses table, which has an ID, a user ID as a foreign key,
Mm-hmm.
software ID as a foreign key from the software table,
Mm-hmm.
and a license key and an expiration date.
Okay.
SQL query. Select u.username from licenses L. Join users u on l.userid equals u.id. Join software S on l.softwareid equals s.id, where s.software name equals MS Office. Right now, if you
Mm-hmm.
don't know SQL or you're not following along on this, it's going to be complete gibberish.
Yeah.
But this looks pretty, like standard SQL, and it's speculating, right? I asked it, give me, just what do you think? Right.
Uh-huh.
And it's coming back with like, well, I don't really know, but maybe it looks like this. And it's
Well,
perfectly reasonable. These are reasonable assumptions.
let's say, well, I was gonna say you can't ask it to read the database and take a look at the tables, and then I mean that's not gonna
No,
happen.
but you
But
could
you could
find,
say,
you could say, here is my database structure,
yeah,
right?
you could say I have a single database structure with various fields. The only fields that I'm looking for is license and user. The rest of the
Yes.
data is not important. Could you say that?
Well, what I would
Something else.
say is I have a database containing these fields,
Mm-hmm.
license, user. Given this, write a SQL query to do that. Because if you have extra fields, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Right. I also, for example, I asked it like one of my earliest chats. I mean, it was pretty funny actually. I asked it, I, oh, there's some stuff that's so funny. I don't even want to ask it. Um, I asked it, for instance, its opinion on legal and contractual matters, like to whom does this legislation apply?
Mm-hmm.
I asked it, oh, translate this Perl code to Python,
Oh,
right? I asked it, for instance, I was given a bunch of Perl, and Perl being like, if I have a script, I have this script that I wrote in Perl, but sometimes like Perl's not a very maintainable language, whereas Python is easier to maintain. Over time, it's a little easier to read. So I just said, here's some Perl, translate this to Python, and
did
like
you do that with like a bat file, converting that to a PowerShell script?
PowerShell, easy. Why don't you
Easy.
do that right now? Find me that batch file right now. We'll do it live.
Find me that batch file.
Yeah, find me that batch file. So yeah. So dear listener, you may have noticed this is a slightly nerdier episode than normal, but yeah, that's what we're doing.
Yeah. So
Now I
it's
haven't actually tested this conversion to Python, but at a glance, it looks good, right? But we know it doesn't always generate flawless code. I have definitely, there are a lot of articles there where, it's been giving wrong stuff. And I have definitely been receiving Splunk queries where it did not work. And so, often I find like if it gets pretty darn close on the first shot, you're probably in good shape. But it's good at getting like 80% of the way to where you're going, but that last 20%, like I was having it help me write a Splunk query, some reports, and I was trying to fine tune the output just to tweak the output just a little bit to make it more readable and presentable. And every time it gave me that, it just completely broke the results. I would get
yeah.
nothing. So, it can only go so far. But that said, 80% versus zero is still a huge improvement, in my humble opinion.
Yeah. All right. I've sent you a tiny script.
A
It's a
tiny
simple
script.
script to set the user. Oh, that's fine.
Maybe
Set.
what is there a mistake in it?
I think there is a mistake in it
Well, why don't we ask
because,
ChatGPT to find and identify the mistake?
yeah, because I can see the mistake right there.
Okay.
So username account where the name equals Sublime admin, but I just said the net user is administrator. So let's see if it can find that.
Are there any bugs in this code? Question mark.
And there's a space. Yes, there is. I can see
Okay,
it.
the code that you provided appears to be a batch script that enables the local administrator account and sets its password, as well as disables password expiration for the blank admin account used by the WMIC command. As for potential bugs, it's difficult to say without additional context. However, I can provide some general feedback. The password that you listed may not be strong enough and could easily be guessed by a brute force attacker. If the script is intended to run on multiple machines, you may want to consider using a random password generator. Be careful when using WMIC to modify user accounts, as incorrect usage could result in unintended consequences. Let me be more specific. You're looking for a syntax error?
Well, what is specifically wrong is what I see wrong is one there was a space in the user account where name. There was a space in front of the apostrophe, and I was setting the wrong administrator. I was setting the administrator password for a different account other than the named administrator, and we're gonna set the password on the account administrator.
Right. So this is where logically it has no way of knowing that.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
So
yeah, yeah,
we
you're
could
right.
say though, like if I am trying to, like so we need to define the use case. Like so we
Mm.
want this to reset the password on the second account, right? As opposed to the administrator account.
Yep, yeah, that's where the mistake was.
The intent is for this script to reset the password on the blank account. Will this work? It will not reset the password. It will only disable password expiration for that account.
Uh-huh.
But so what does the first line do? What does the first line do? Yeah, so it may not catch this one.
Yeah.
Okay, that enables the account.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the
Yeah.
point is, so
I
we
enabled
want
one account and set the password on another.
right,
Yeah.
enable the account and reset its password.
Oh, that's slick.
Does this script do this? The script enables the administrator account, but it sets the password for the administrator account, not the other account.
Uh-huh. So it
Right.
knows.
Right. So it can see that, right?
Mhm.
But again, that's not what we asked at first. I was like, are there any problems with it? But logically, it doesn't know that you didn't. It's like, okay, you want to enable this account. Good. Oh, you want to reset the password on that account. Sure, that'll work. But we didn't say we want to reset and we enable and reset the password on the same account. When you say
Mhm.
that, it's like, oh, that's what you're trying to do. No, that's not going to work.
Yeah, that won't.
Yeah. So
So
yeah,
all right. So now that
here's
we know what to do, let's see it. Let's drop it in a PowerShell script.
all right. Okay. Please adjust the code to enable and set the password for the same. I'm just going to say administrator account
That's fine.
for the generic administrator account. Okay, so it's going to do that, basically just replacing the word here. Yep. So it sets net user administrator. Here's a password /active equals yes or colon yes. Net user administrator. New password 123 /active colon yes. Okay.
Mhm.
Before we proceed, please choose a stronger password.
It said that?
No, I just told it that.
Oh, okay.
It says certainly net user administrator Q parrot S close parentheses N4YT gobbledygook. Great.
Nice.
Great. Give me back the entire script. Okay. Here's an example of the modified script. Rem, enable the administrator account and set its password. Net user blah, active equals yes. WMIC user account where username equals administrator, set password expires false. Done. Please convert this to PowerShell. Here's an example how to convert to PowerShell. Um, So the first password is the same because it uses the net user command in the
Mm-hmm.
built-in, because all DOS commands and Windows commands still work in PowerShell.
Mm-hmm.
But then the second command, it changes to the get WMI object
Uh-huh.
command, right? But it says, oh, that might not be available in newer versions of PowerShell, in which case you might need to use the get CIM instance commandlet instead. And it
Mm-hmm.
gives that example too.
Well, that's cool.
So yeah, so it's, and this is where I find problems sometimes, because I'll be, doing some stuff and it'll say like, oh, that didn't work. You need this command. Oh, well, here's a workaround. But it often breaks down there and doesn't actually do what what we're hoping it would do.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's still pretty cool because there's some things where I'm not a strong PowerShell script. I mean, I'm better with the command prompt scripts, but I still wouldn't say I'm a programmer. I mean, I'm an
yeah,
engineer. Yeah.
I've never considered myself a programmer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Typically
also, yeah,
I steal somebody else's script and modify it to do what I need it to do.
yep. I had fun this morning. My yoga teacher this morning ended a poem, ended her class with a poem that she pulled off of Instagram. It's called Reassurances to Save for a Rainy Day. And it's pretty funny. It's kind of long, so I'm not going to read the whole thing. But I think we can put it in the show notes. And then I will put the versions that I asked it to do in the style of Jocko Willink and David Goggins, and then again in the style of Miyamoto Musashi. So I thought I got a kick out of that. I thought it was
Uh-huh.
pretty fun. I
That
thought it
would
was
be
pretty
funny.
fun. Yeah. Well, reassurances, one, for one, it's saying things like, it's okay, things happen, you'll get another chance. No one's mad at you, no one thinks you're stupid. Honestly, everyone thinks you're hot. Going over to things like, even the strongest ask for assistance. If they walked away, they weren't your battle buddy. If they belittled you, they weren't your teammate. Moving on to Musashi for things like walk the path of righteousness. Even the mightiest warriors seek assistance. Those who depart were not destined to walk beside you. Those who belittle have not embraced the way. So I get a kick out of stuff like that.
Yeah. So, well, cool. That was a fun little thing. All right. So then you had I mean, you had said that you are doing some things where with ChatGPT and it's saving you time and work. I mean,
Yes,
it's actually being beneficial to you.
correct.
How about can you give me some ways that that is happening?
Blog posts.
Blog posts?
Yep. For a um I was working on with one client to help them create policies.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, just give me an outline, give me a rough outline of like, what should this policy contain?
Mm-hmm.
Boom, 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 boom. Here's 5 bullet points. I'm like, okay, great. Let's start on that. And then I can say, reference the NIST cybersecurity framework
Mm-hmm.
and, do such and such with respect to, whatever. And it's like, okay, according to this cybersecurity framework, you should include blah. I'm like, great. What does that mean? I'm not sure what certification and accreditation means in this context. And it'll say,
Mm-hmm.
oh, well, in this context, certification and accreditation means that, those who are creating this system will certify that they have done such and such, and senior leadership will accredit that they have signed off on this, for
Mm-hmm.
example. So just using it to help, sort of like translate things into layman's terms, for one
Mm-hmm.
thing. Again, crafting SQL queries, Splunk queries, PowerShell scripts. One of my colleagues gave me some Visual Basic script that was
Mm-hmm.
just brute force, manual, no looping, no control structures, just like, iterative stuff. And I was
If
like,
then
I
go
and I
to
just
if
I
then.
just yeah, not even if then, it's just like do this, do this, do this, do
Oh,
this,
yeah.
and like the data file was hard coded into the thing. So he gave me this like big long blob of code that he had mostly copied and pasted, and I just gave it to GPT and I said, "Can you please clean this code up?" And it did.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Okay." And then I eyeballed it and I was like, yeah, I think this really would work.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I said, isn't it best practice to separate the data from the code? I was like, oh yeah, sure. So put all of your, the list of all of the accounts in question into this text file. And then it's like, read this text file and then move on. So, for cleanup stuff like that, really
Mm-hmm.
good. I've also asked it things like, um, a user wants to put a device on a protected network. What are the security ramifications that we should consider? And
Mm-hmm.
it comes back with some recommendations. And then I say, okay, this is a financial systems network. What considerations should we give it? This is a
Mm-hmm.
manufacturing network. What considerations should we give it? So giving it like specific stuff. And again, I mean, it's at bare minimum junior level capable. It
Mm-hmm.
is doing as good a job as someone fresh in the industry, and sometimes a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
you know so the way I look at it though is like, it's essentially, it's giving you an opinion, which is no different than search results,
Mm-hmm.
right? Unless if you're looking for fact checking, it could be different. But if you're looking at, like, when I was in Costa Rica and my feet started to swell, right? I could go to Google, I could go to Mayo Clinic, I could go to WebMD, I could go to Reddit, and I could say, does acetaminophen cause your feet to swell?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I could do all that aggregation, or I could ask GPT the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's essentially doing the aggregation for me and giving me its opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be frank. If I asked my doctor, they would be giving me their opinion too.
Yeah.
Right. You're like, yeah, but that's a trained medical pressure. It's a human and humans make mistakes. Right. This is the same doctor who immediately said, saw my cholesterol level and, discounting everything else he knew about me, said, I want to put you on a statin. Right. And, so people make mistakes too. So, this is where I tend to give the AI the benefit of the doubt. But I'm taking that into effect, right? And again, I don't remember where I've used this example a few other times. It's like when we started, when we were allowed to bring calculators into school for math class.
Mm-hmm.
People would just plug in numbers and just take the answer, and that was it, done, not even give it a thought. Right.
2 + 2 = 45.
Yeah, what's wrong with that? Yeah, fine.
That's what the
It's
calculator said.
calculator said it. Right. This is the same exact thing. So this is why I think this is cool. I think it's great. Now, I am astonished at these, at some of these organizations that are putting complete, utter blind faith into these things.
Yeah.
There's like a company, a startup called Conveyor, which is
Mm-hmm.
using GPT to do your company's compliance questionnaires for you. You just answer a few questions and GPT will answer all of these things so you can fill out your compliance questionnaires. What could possibly go wrong? I'm really curious. I'm frankly very curious to see how this program works and what it does.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't know, man. Like,
Well, either it's a serious liar or I could just, like, whenever we do a compliance check for our clients and the test runs against them, this garbage comes back of like, well, the certificate of whatever is doing
yes,
this, and you're going to have to update this on your firewall. And then you just turn the port off, and then all of a sudden the certificate issue goes away. I mean, those kind of iterations I think would drive you nuts.
yes, exactly. Yeah. Um, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, like I said, it's got super potential, it's got super use, but you can't just give it everything and just trust to the wind. I mean, you can. I don't recommend it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and it sounds like at least what I'm hearing is you gotta have a little bit of understanding of whatever you're asking it to do, because you're gonna have to read it, you're gonna have to understand it. You are going to have to you're not gonna be able to shut your brain off. I mean,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
but you don't have to
Plenty of
do
people
that.
out there, who don't have it on in the first place, dude.
Yeah. Well, because for me, when I've got to, if I've got to do, all right, we need to do the annual report for compliance. I've got a blank sheet of paper. Where this way
Right.
I could start off with not a blank sheet of paper.
Precisely. Now related to this too, right, is just plain old automation, right? I see this as a form of automation, again, of which I am a fan. For one of my clients, every year they go through a SOC 2 audit process, which
Mm-hmm.
is not trivial, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've got a meeting with them next week because and like they spend a lot of time generating reports, collecting samples, code snippets, screenshots, etc., to satisfy the auditors.
Mm-hmm.
They recently found out that Amazon Web Services has click here to generate a SOC 2 report, compliance report. And they said, can we use this? I'm like, I don't know. First, for me, it's a little hard to read, right? Ultimately, it's going to be up to the auditors to decide.
Mm-hmm.
But if this thing automatically generates auditor satisfactory evidence, sure. Right now, I'm not sure I would just trust a PDF file that just says AWS says you're compliant, right?
Mm-hmm.
Without knowing how it came to this conclusion,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's not the same thing, right? It's not the same thing as AI and stuff, but it's automation where, again, do you just trust it? Is that it? Or do you give it some thought? So I'm a little skeptical.
Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking of a scenario right now. So I have a service that I use to scan computers.
Mm-hmm.
And when I scan the computers, I'm looking for security holes and I'm scanning them as the user is logged in. So I'm trying to emulate a cybersecurity attack. So on your computer, I want to do everything that you could do if somebody compromised your computer. That's my exercise. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm pulling back all of your passwords. If it's in if it's in Chrome, and you've got your browser open, then I can get it. It shows me the patch state of your computer. It shows me, based on your email, your dark web search, how many credentials for this account are in the dark web? How
Mm-hmm.
many times is this password being reused based on your password history that I just pulled from your Chrome? And I've got all these things about the user, and I'm trying to determine their penetration, you know, their how much surface space somebody could get. Well, you can imagine the amount of pages of data I get for one user. What happens when I have 75 users or 175 users?
Mm-hmm.
Who is reading the summary and determining what actions need to be taken?
Yep.
I
You
am.
could, right. But GPT could also probably help you. So help me prioritize all these things,
Yeah.
for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, you got to give it some thought, right? Don't just
Mm-hmm.
walk away and take everything it says, but absolutely it can, give you a summary of best practices. Now, the warning in again of the caveat emptor moment here is you've got to remember that, garbage in, garbage out. It
Mm-hmm.
is taking a sample size of a lot of different stuff on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
But again, so far in my experience, it's been erring on the side of good,
Mm-hmm.
right? It hasn't. There are definitely times when the new term I guess is it hallucinates, where it gives back wrong data or it's just like forgets what it's talking about and goes off on a tangent and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, for straightforward, direct queries and things like that, that's pretty good. I asked it. I asked it to write an April Fool's joke
Mm-hmm.
for my team, and it was pretty hilarious because I told them essentially how the to the security department, we're done. We're
Mm-hmm.
thrilled to announce that our security program has been completed. That's right. We've successfully mitigated and addressed all security threats. So all security functions have now concluded. Time to sit back, relax, and enjoy a job well done. You may be wondering how we managed to eliminate all those pesky security threats like phishing, DDoS attacks, and malware infections. Well, let us tell you, it wasn't easy, but we did it. First, we tackled phishing threats. We set up a training program and included an online game called Spot the Fish to help users identify and avoid phishing emails. The top performers won a prize, a can of sardines. We figured if they could spot a fake email, they could spot a fake fish. Next, we dealt with DDoS attacks. We decided to fight fire with fire and created our own DDoS attack on our own servers. We managed to crash our own systems multiple times until we figured out how to prevent it from happening. It wasn't pretty, but it was effective, which is actually not funny. That's called penetration testing and chaos engineering. You should be doing stress testing. It's not, but it sounds funny. Finally, we tackled malware infections. This is where it gets good. We discovered the best way to prevent infections was to stop users from clicking on suspicious links or downloading sketchy files. So we developed a browser extension that replaced every download button with a don't download button. It was simple, but effective.
Don't download button.
The don't download button, right? And the don't click this link, text, right? That would be great. Like just inline JavaScript and HTML editing. So anytime you find the words click here or something like that, it changes it to don't click here.
That's nice.
So anyway, that's just an example, and again, I could do better, right? But that's a great start. That is a colossal start. And like, oh, now I know what to do. Now I know where I'm going with my April Fool's jokes. Wonderful. One way where it is terrible. Good things. Mixed drink recipes. Easily. Yep. I was my girlfriend said, what's the recipe? She wanted a sidecar. So she messaged me. It's like, I said, I'm heading to the store. Do we need anything? And she's like, sidecar, please. And I'm like, okay, so I can go to Google. I could search for it. I could find a place. I could go to yumly.com. I could be told I'm not a subscriber to yumly.com. I could go back, search for it again because I searched in iOS and that doesn't save the history. So it's not in my Google history. Search for it again, find it, exclude yumly.com, go down to allrecipes.com, scroll down through 15 pages of context just to find the ingredients and then go buy the ingredients. Or I say, GPT, what's the recipe for a drink known as a sidecar? And it tells me cognac, orange liqueur like triple sec, lemon juice, sugar, and a lemon twist. Good. Done. That's all. That's what I needed to know. And it's faster than, strolling through search results and stuff. So, now, to its credit, A-Word, the lady in the tube, could probably do something similar. Alexa, give me a recipe for the drink known as a sidecar.
Finding some sidecar recipes. Okay, for sidecar, I recommend sidecar from Side Chef. 5 minutes to make. What would you think?
Send to phone, add to list, add to cart, or here, next recipe.
Send it to my phone. There you go. So A-Word can do that task as well, right?
So here's an interesting, well, I want to slightly shift gears, but I don't want to, unless there was anything else you want, but it's still associated. So I have Microsoft's Clarity for my websites.
Okay.
So it's looking for like heat maps of where people click on my website. So a user goes to my website, they click. It records that so we know what they're clicking. It's looking for problems. It's looking where, if a user clicked a link and it didn't go anywhere, or a user gets mad, they call them rage clicks, where they click it a bunch of times because it's not doing what they want to do. So I watched one of my Clarity videos, and it was a longer video. It was like a minute and 20 some odd seconds. And a user, and I say user with quotes around it, clicked, the mouse moved around pretty slowly, looking for links, and then did not click on the links. So it appeared to be somebody went to my website, assumingly from a pay-per-click engine, visited my website for a minute and a half, looking at a couple of pages, but then clicking on words that were not a link, clearly not a link, like they're black, they're not hyperlinked, and whatever. But now I've been charged because it was a valid, as far as the pay-per-click engine is concerned, it was a valid redirect, and the user spent a minute and a half looking on my web page, so they must charge me for that click. Is that AI, or is that a unskilled laborer being paid to waste pay-per-click?
Like I said, AI and GPT is at least as skilled as a junior level.
Well, it could detect, it could detect if the mouse is over top of a hyperlink. It could.
Sure. Oh yeah. Oh, that's JavaScript.
Yeah.
Yeah. On mouse over.
Because one of the things that it is looking for, Clarity is looking for, are JavaScript errors. And there are JavaScript errors. So it could be clicking and there's nothing there.
Very interesting. Okay. Huh. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. And I don't know if, AI can, do we have AI wars now where AI can detect AI being used? I would say that's probably a legit use case, right? Because, well, think about it again. Is that AI? I don't know. But Google and reCAPTCHA has been taking into account things like how you use the mouse and where you click and how you hover and stuff like that to determine whether or not you get prompted with, tell me all the pictures, click all the images that are school buses. Right. So they've been doing that for years now. So it sounds to me like the same technology.
Yeah. So I've got about 4 or 5 minutes left. If there's anything you want to cover,
I'm good.
I thought this, if our users are listening or interested in ChatGPT and AI, this is the episode for them.
This is the episode for them. Oh boy. Well, if you want to find us, Adam, how can you do so, dear listener?
How can they find us? Well, supposedly they've already found us if they're listening to us, but
I always think about that too. That's like walking up to people in France and asking, "Parlez-vous français?" or "Parlez-vous anglais?" No, I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say, "Do you speak English?"
Yeah, true. But they could learn more about us if they didn't get enough of us in our podcast. They can find us they can find you, Peter Nikolaidis, specifically at Paradigm Consulting Company LLC, paradigmcc.com, yogawithpeter.com, friendswithbrews.com, and on the Mastodon, at Nikolaidis at infosec.exchange. They can find me at Sublime Computer Services, sublimecomp.com, and the growing lavender farm, rrlavenderfarm.com, and on the twit at Sublime Comp.
On the twit.
On the twit.
On the twit.
Don't say that incorrectly.
Oh man. All right, cool. Well, there you go. Yeah, I got nothing else.
All right.
I think it's time for read.ai to hit that big red button.
Hit the big red button.